Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Angela. Today I have another Thrift Flip Thursday challenge hosted by Savannah over at Savvy Crafts with Savannah and Shayna from Robinson Repurposing. These ladies are super talented. Check out their channels if you haven't already. I will leave their links in the description box below along with the playlist for all the other creators. Just like last month, we had to find items at the thrift store that altogether totaled no more than $10. Stay tuned to see what I come up with, and let's get started. For this first project, I have this little hexagon stool that I found at the Goodwill, and it is pretty dirty, pretty beat up, and it's not beat up, but it's pretty disgusting. The tag says $5.99. I paid $3 for it. I got it on a 50% off day. So the first thing I need to do is spray it down with my crud cutter, clean it really well because it was pretty dirty. Then I'm going to take it out into my garage and I'm going to use my palm sander to sand it down. Now it looks like I'm going all the way down to bare wood. I don't do that around the whole thing, but there wasn't a whole lot to this piece. It seemed like it might have had a thin layer, maybe stain. It was probably just a protective sealer. So I just gave it a nice scuff sand. So while I was sanding, I realized the top was just held on with these screws. So I just took it off so that I could get all the way around top, bottom, and then I noticed this little guy's missing. And I don't know if I did that or if it was like that. I thought I checked the whole piece before I bought it, but possibly missed something. So I think I'm just gonna pry all of these off. I can't really do it with one hand, but I think I'm just gonna take them all off and maybe fill in the holes. So we'll see about that. Still thinking on that little part. But then I also realized when the top was on, it was kind of wobbly. So these pieces, you can see there, they're just kind of sitting together. So I am gonna take some wood glue, glue these down nice and secure so it doesn't wobble like that anymore. So once I added in all of my wood filler, I was letting that dry and brought the top piece in to paint it with my Ivory color by Waverly. And I did paint the top and bottom of this piece with 2 coats. After my wood filler was dry, I just sanded that down to be flat, and you can see now that the top is nice and not wobbly anymore. You can't really see that, but it's not wobbly anymore. And I decided to paint this with a deep navy blue. Now I mixed up this color. I used Apple Barrel True Navy and then ink, which is black by Waverly, because I wanted to be a very deep navy blue. And I love the color that this turned out. Blue is really popular in home decor this year, so I wanted to start making a few pieces with this color. I also started on the bottom of my stool and then worked my way to the top of it. Next, I'm taking these wall art stickers that I found at the dollar spot from Target. They were $5, I guess the bullseye spot, whatever you want to call it. They were $5. And I'm just gonna peel these little terrazzo pieces off and place them all over my stool. So I took the largest pieces first, placed those where I wanted, and then I filled in with the more medium and smaller pieces throughout. And I did make sure to wrap some pieces around the corners and get them on the sides, but I did not go under the stool. I didn't really think that part was necessary. But these are basically just really, really thin little stickers. And they're not navy. The dark ones are more black, but I thought because they were so sheer almost, you really couldn't tell the difference between the black and the navy. So once I had everything placed where I wanted, I'm just taking some polyacrylic and I'm going to seal everything in. I like using polyacrylic because it's water-based, and using a white or light paint, it is not going to turn yellow over time. After the poly dried, I did go over it with a little bit of sandpaper, and this was a 220. I went very lightly
but you can kind of see it did like leave some little spots in my terrazzo looking stickers, and I was okay with it on the edges because I felt like it gave it a more like realistic look. But there are a few little spots that kind of threw it off, but that's okay. I still think this looks amazing. So now I just need to attach the bottom of my stool to the top of it, and it was really hard to fit my screw gun in there, but it worked out. And the last little detail I'm going to add is some little furniture tacks. So I just marked where I wanted to place those, held them on with my little pliers here, and then hammered them down. So I did pull them down a little bit from where those original dowels were, and I didn't put them on the bottom. I only put them on the top. But I thought this was a nice finishing detail to the piece, and they're like a bronze color. But that's it for this project. Let me know what you think. I think this looks so on trend and so cute for a thrift store find. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also did seal in the navy blue color with a just clear chalk paint wax. On to project number 2, I found this little votive holder at, again, the Goodwill, and the price on this one says $4.99, so I paid $2.50. We're up to about $7.50 right now, not too bad. But I just sanded everything down, painted it again with my ivory chalk paint. I didn't think you needed to see that twice. And now I'm taking my antique Waverly wax and I am painting the inside like top portion of those like votive holder holes. So I don't worry about painting the whole thing because we are gonna fill this in with something, and you'll see that here in just a minute. I love what the antique Waverly wax does over top of white paint. I think it just gives that realistic wood look. So next I'm taking this Quickcrete that I got from Home Depot, and I just got a little bucket of it, mixed it together to the consistency. It said to just use 5 parts of the mixture of the cement mix with 1 part water. So I mixed that together, and then I just pushed it down into my votive holders, or little candle holders, whatever they are. And then I just used my finger and my thumb to just kind of smooth it out to get a nice flat surface. Once I had this in all of my holes, I did let it dry for several hours before moving on to the next step. I didn't let it dry completely because it wasn't going anywhere by this point. It was fine. So now I'm taking these rub-on transfers that you can find at the Dollar Tree. I could not find these for a very long time when everyone was using them. Finally, I found them, and I picked up like 7 packages because I wanted them so bad. But I just cut off all of the little pieces and I just placed them throughout my candle holder here and there wherever I thought it looked nice, and making sure to also again wrap around those edges for that more high-end look. So when you're using these transfers, you do want to make sure you're using something that's like pretty hard and flat, I guess, to rub them on, just to make sure you're getting everything to adhere properly. And then when you're going around the corners, you want to make sure you really rub off that flat surface first, and don't let the transfer bend over or touch like the corner or wrap around until you're ready to do that part. I learned that the hard way on a different project, not on this one, but if you kind of let it touch the surface before you're ready to really smooth it down, you're gonna kind of make it look off and not like it's like one cohesive piece. I hope that makes sense, but it like ends up like skipping a little bit and kind of just looking jaggedy and just not nice, not as nice. But that was it for this one. I just played around with it in all of the different variations of the leaves, and I think this looks so high-end and so beautiful. Something you would definitely find at like Anthropologie or Urban Outfitters. Let me know what you guys think. Project number 3, I found this little like envelope looking planter, again from Goodwill, $4.99. We paid $2.50 for it. So I guess we're up to $7.58. Oh, we're at $10. I guess I'm just realizing now that I went over the $10 limit by just a little bit, because I do have one more project. But sorry guys, I just realized that. Anyways, now I'm taking some sandpaper and just giving this a nice scuff sand. I did also clean it really well with my crud cutter, inside and out, and threw away that Spanish moss that was in it. So I am going to show you a little bit of painting here because I want to walk you through my process. I changed my mind on what I initially was going to do. So first I'm taking my mineral chalk paint by Waverly and I'm painting the entire surface. So what I want to do is I want that detail to stand out. And I really was into like that blue color scheme that's going on at the moment, like the deep navy. I didn't really get this to be like that deep navy that I had wanted, but I still like the blue color, and I painted the whole thing blue over top of my gray because I want the gray to be what comes through in the details. So I was really onto the blue trend, and then I realized I want to put some like greenery in here or some florals. I really wanted greenery, and I was thinking I don't know if this greenery is going to look good with the blue. So I ended up changing my mind. I sat on it for a few days before actually like deciding what I wanted to do with it. But in the end, I did change my mind. I think this still would have been really beautiful in the blue and gray, but it also just didn't really match my home either. So I'm really happy with the direction I ended up going. But next I took just a wet cloth and I did some wet distressing to bring out that gray underneath of the blue paint. And I thought I would have more control with the wet distressing rather than sandpaper. I actually think that this sandpaper gives a little bit more control than the rag does. And the rag also takes a little bit away from the blue paint that is around the detailing because the water is just like kind of rubbing off that blue. So here's how it was looking. And again, this is beautiful, but it just wasn't going, I wasn't loving it. It wasn't matching my home. It wasn't matching my aesthetic. So instead I took my Moss by Waverly, which is this green color, and I put that down next. Once I had that down, I took Rust-Oleum, and I have to give a shout out to my girl Brandy from the DIY Struggle. She did a like chalk paint comparison video a little while back. I will link that in my description box below, but I really wanted to try this out after watching her video because she says how smooth this Rust-Oleum paint is, and let me tell you, if you haven't used this, it is like butter compared to Waverly. Like Waverly has that chalky texture, Rust-Oleum does not. It is so smooth and amazing. So I'm so happy that I bought this, but I'm just using the linen white color over top of my moss green. So this time I decided to try out the sandpaper instead of the wet distressing. And yes, this worked out much better. I did have more control over where I wanted to bring out those details. And I was able to like give some spots like more heavy distressing, some spots a little less distressing, where when I did the wet distress, it really did like go down like even to the bare surface. And I just had a lot less control over how I wanted the final result to look. So last thing I need to do is add in my florals, and I did end up taking the handle off of the top. I was debating that throughout this entire process, if I was going to keep it painted, what I was going to do, but I did take it off. So now I'm just taking some plastic bags and filling up the inside so that we have some height for our florals. And then I'm taking some lamb's ear that I got from Walmart, placing this all around, and I gave it some varying height. So like the back was taller than the front, and I'm going to do that with all of the florals that I put in this arrangement. Next, I'm going to take these little white flowers that I got from Dollar General, and I just love how they also had that like, I don't know what it is on there, but it's like that like velvety feel to the greenery part, so it matched with the lamb's ear look. I hope that makes sense. And then the last little bit I'm gonna add is some lavender pieces. And again, they have that like velvety feel. I don't even know what you call that, but it's just like a type of texture or something that's on it, but it all had that nice cohesive look. And the last little detail we are going to add is some jute twine. So I just hot glued it to the back, wrapped it around about 3 times. And of course, we need to have the jute twine. Whenever you don't know what else to do to a project, add on some jute twine and you're good. So I just hot glued that down in the back to hold it in place. And then I just added in a little jute twine bow, and that was it. I am so happy that I took a couple of days to think about this project and what I really wanted it to look like. And I didn't just settle for the blue and the gray look because it just really wasn't gonna go with my home. But you'll have to let me know, what do you think? Which version would you have preferred? Are you into the blues this year that are so popular? Greens are popular too, so this still goes well with the trends of the year. I don't show it, but I do, of course, burn my jute twine to get all of those little fuzzies off. But here's a look at how this one turned out. For this last project, I'm taking this large shadow box that I got, again, from the Goodwill. It was $5.99, so I paid $3 for it. We're over by a few dollars. It was originally a, what is that place called? TJ Maxx? TJ Maxx piece that was $30, and it was comparable at $60. So a great deal for such a large shadow box. So the first thing I need to do is get all of this felt backing off because I want to take this piece apart. And this is definitely the most involved project in today's video. Once I had all of that felt backer off, I wanted to remove the plywood backing because we need to remove those little florals and whatnot that's inside of it. I had intended on reusing this backer to as much like my background piece, but it was pretty beat up and just not very nice shape, so I decided not to use that, scrap it. I had also planned on using the glass, but the glass was frosted and I could not get that frosted glass part to come off. I tried scraping it, I tried acetone, nothing was working, so scrapped that idea as well and moved on to something totally different from my original plan. So once I had all of the elements removed, I sanded it down in my garage, and then I'm taking my ebony stain by, I believe this is a varathane stain, and I'm just going to stain my entire wood frame. And then I'm gonna let that dry for 24 hours. So I cut down a piece of plywood in my garage that would fit inside of this frame rather than the beat up piece that it came with. And I just painted it white with my Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. I didn't think you needed to see that. You already saw me use that paint once. But then I just drew on some shiplap lines there with my T-square, and now I'm going to give it a more distressed, rustic look. Now, distressing is totally a personal preference. I don't personally love a ton of distressing, but I know a lot of people who are into the farmhouse style do. So do as much or as little distressing that you're comfortable with. So I went in with my Waverly Antique Wax, and then I used that for like my shiplap lines. Then I went over, I thought it was a little too dark. I went over it with my white chalk paint again. And then I started going back and forth with all of my colors. So various shades of brown. I used my Waverly Wax, I used fawn, and then I used hazelnut. And then again, I was just taking my white, blending all the colors together, making it all look seamless and pleasing to my eye. Next, I am taking some vinyl decals that I cut out with my Cricut, and I spelled Jones Hive. So we're gonna make this like a little beehive sign because I absolutely love bees for the spring and summertime. So one mistake that I did here, I should have put my plywood backer up against my frame to see where I should have placed my words, because I feel like I did place them slightly too high. It looks fine, it still looks great, but I wish I would have brought them down maybe even like half an inch or so. But I just use my L roller here from the Dollar Tree to make sure I get all of my vinyl decals on there nice and straight. Next, I just cut out some little honeycomb pieces because, of course, if we're having a bee sign, we need to have some honeycombs. And I just found this design right on the Cricut design space. I just typed in, I think I just typed in honeycomb or maybe like hexagon, I don't know, something like that, but it was really easy to find. And I'm just gonna cut this up, and I placed like some larger sections, some smaller sections, and you'll see that here in a second. But I just pulled it off of the backing and put it down like a sticker. I didn't think the transfer tape would have been helpful putting this one down, so I just used it like a sticker. And it worked out fine. So once I had that piece down, then I wanted to paint some of the little hexagon honeycomb parts yellow. I did want to give this sign a little pop of color, and I think it was much needed. The yellow paint that I have was a very bright yellow, so I did just add in a little dab of black. You can see on my little palette there, I added way too much black at first and had to go back and redo it. But the last little element we need to add for this part of the sign is my bee, of course, to complete our hive. But don't turn this off just yet, we're not there. We have a few more little added details, finishing touches that we want to add to this sign. So I'm going to take my wood glue, glue my backing plywood background onto my sign here. But since this is a shadow box, I want to give it that 3D element. So next I'm taking this chicken wire that I bought from Walmart, and again I'm just cutting it down to size with some wire cutters. Be very careful, this stuff is very sharp. And then I took some E6000, glued it down to my like shadow box, the portion of the frame, and held it on with some clips to dry. I did not let this dry for 24 hours before moving on to my next step, but I did let it dry long enough to where it was holding in place. So the last little detail that we're gonna add on here is I took a little sponge dabber and I'm taking the color Burnt Sienna, which is like a rusty color, and then I'm just dabbing it all over the chicken wire along with some Elephant Gray, which is a dark gray to tone down that silver, and then just a little touch of black because I don't want this to look like new chicken wire or new wire at all. I really don't want it to look like wire. I kind of want it to look like just like a 3D element of the honeycomb beehive. So I definitely wanted to tone down that shininess. And once I had all of my colors on there, I did go in with some Mod Podge and I just glopped it on a couple of like various spots, mostly like where the seams were and where the wires twisted together. And then I took some ground cinnamon, put it on where the Mod Podge was so that it would have that more like rusty old look and more like 3D element. And I think this just really helped add to this overall aesthetic of this sign, and I just love the way this turned out. I do go in and add one more small little hive section next to the 2015 because I thought it was just missing a little something right there. But let me know what you guys think of this sign. I absolutely love it. All right, guys, that's it for this Thrift Flip Thursday. I had a lot of fun making these projects. Let me know which was your favorite. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.